All right. Here we go, back again on the other side of the coin.
All right. Here we go, back again on the other side of the coin. The boys, we are back. We are back doing another one of these madness. Every now and then, we want to, come together and talk about certain topics that need a little bit more time to get an understanding of a situation. Last time we got together was the Jules Kounde one, and you guys appreciated that a lot. Obviously, Advaith being that resident La Liga expert. That was very good to hear from Jules Kounde's point of view from La Liga, and you guys really appreciated that. And Ameya bringing a whole bag of tricks with all of those stat work. So we thought we'll do this madness one more time. First of all, Ameya, my man, how you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Looking forward to talking about Saul. I mean, it should be an interesting one. That's about it. I mean, I'm not entirely convinced, but I'll save my thoughts for later.
Of course. I'm not totally convinced as well, but that doesn't mean Saul's a bad player or anything like that. But of course, we'll deeper into it. Advaith, my man, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, and it's good to see these La Liga players linked to Premier League clubs so that we can have a chat about it. Know what I mean? So that's good, and it's always good to be on your channel. So yeah, looking forward to a good chat.
Brilliant, man. I'm thinking about doing a La Liga special, maybe bring you in on my channel and have a La Liga special. Looks like there's a lot of connection. There's a lot of hype as well. Obviously, the whole Eden Hazard situation. So we'll see. Watch this space. Maybe the other side of the coin could, kickstart a La Liga special, and you might see a date in there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get talking about Saúl. Bad boy Fabrizio Romano yesterday tweeted out, Chelsea will decide in the next few days whether to buy a new midfielder or not. Keeping an eye on Saúl Ñíguez. He's considered a possibility, not advanced yet. Atletico Madrid will decide soon about Saúl's future. Chelsea are still working on Kounde deal too. Then he literally just tweeted about 8 hours ago, Chelsea are looking to sell, offload some other players before taking decisions on Kounde and Saúl deals. This is from Sky Sport, but he tweeted that out. Zappacosta set to join Fiorentina on loan plus option. Bologna want Malang Sarr on loan. Bakayoko one step away from joining AC Milan. Ogbo decision soon. So, boys, looks like there is some truth behind this particular rumor or link, whatever you want to call it. Saúl Ñíguez, I'm very, very surprised because I literally thought this guy was a one step away from getting into Liverpool. Like there was all sorts of talks that he was going to get into Liverpool. I'm not really sure why he's not in the Liverpool jersey as yet. I'm not sure what's going on. We were talking about Tchouaméni. We were talking about a while back, Boubacar Kamara. There was Camavinga out of nowhere. Saúl. I know Saúl was in the sort of radar previously, but now seems like it's a possibility. It's not advanced as per Fabrizio Romano, but I just don't understand this particular link. I'll go to you, Ameya, first up. I mean, look, I'm no expert about Saúl Ñíguez. I've seen Saúl Ñíguez for Atletico Madrid mostly in Champions League. I've not really followed La Liga that much, especially not in the sense where I completely follow Atletico Madrid. I might have watched some El Clasico games in terms of Real Madrid and Barcelona. But from what I've seen in Atletico Madrid, Ameya, is a decent player. There's no doubt about that. Like he's a good ball-playing midfielder. He can play in many different areas in midfield. He presses well. He counter-presses well. The matches that I've seen for Atletico Madrid, what resonates to me is that this guy is a high-intensity player. Much like a kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, I could be absolutely wrong here, but much like that Mount kind of mold, presses well, got that energy. And I think it will fit Thomas Tuchel's midfield. But I don't think we need this kind of a midfielder because we have this profile. I don't think it brings anything different to us. That's my personal view. I mean, I'll go to you first up, man. What stats knowledge you got? And can you put any sort of, direction as to how he could fit into a Chelsea team?
Yep. I mean, I was honestly surprised by this news as well. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it does look like it's not the teams that are interested in Saul, but it's rather Saul is being offered to such teams. I think that's the sort of situation it is, which is why we see him getting linked to so many different teams, right? And now it's our turn to get linked with him. I mean, it makes sense in a way because we're looking for, that fourth midfielder, especially after letting Billy Gilmore go out on loan. We're short in midfield. We have just, three midfielders for those two spots, which is definitely not enough. And I think Saul Niguez can, play in one of those roles. But the issue is, right, I mean, we need someone to step in for Kounde because Jorginho and Kovacic, right, they're sort of, I wouldn't say exactly similar, but when Jorginho misses out, Kovacic can come in and put a shift, right, and do Jorginho's job. But when Kounde misses out, right, that's when we need a player to step in. That's why we're getting linked to Boubacar Kamara. That's why we're getting linked to Tchouaméni, right? It's because we need that profile of player. It's not that we need another midfielder who is of the similar profile that we already have. That's what Saul brings. But honestly, I think Saul does have a decent work rate as well. So I would say that's fair enough. I mean, at least we have the engine that N'Golo Kante has. And then we do, of course, also have his tackles, which are actually pretty impressive. I mean, when I looked it up online, I was actually pretty surprised as well. In terms of tackles won, he ranks, in the top 10 in La Liga in 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, and 2021. So he actually tackles quite a lot, right? And that's one plus point. And he's pretty good. He's technical as well. He's good at pressing. He's appeared in the top 10 for pressures at times. And, he dribbles out of situations well as well. So I would say he is, I mean, not completely similar to a Jorginho Kovacic, but not completely similar to an N'Golo Kante as well. But, at the same time, I think what's being reported is that we're interested in a one-year loan deal, right? I mean, so that does seem like a bit of an interesting situation to me. So it does look like we're probably going to bring him in just as a stopgap because we're not able to sign Declan Rice or Boubacar Kamara or Tchouaméni this summer. Maybe that's why we're getting linked to Saul, just to fit in to that fourth midfield spot, because we literally don't have anyone, right? Ampadu, I know that there have been rumors about Tuchel wanting to see Ampadu, but he hasn't played a single minute in pre-season in that DM role, right? So I don't know from where all of a sudden Tuchel's going to get impressed by him. And then Loftus-Cheek, we have seen he's had a decent pre-season, but when he plays in that midfield six, he's good for a while, but I don't think he can put a shift over an entire game, right? His best position is in an 8 in a 4-3-3, not as a double six. So we're desperately short in that position. And I think it's clear that we need someone to come in, right? And if we're not able to get our first choice targets of Declan Rice or Tchouaméni, then maybe Saul could be a stopgap signing, where usually we're the team that loans out players, but this time we loan in a player for a one-year deal. And maybe let's see how Gilmore develops. And if he on a loan, I don't think anyone can complain really. I mean, if he lights the world on fire, then we can sign him on a permanent next summer, or if he doesn't, then we can send him back to Atletico Madrid next season, and we'll have Billy Gilmore coming back anyway. So personally, I'm not a massive fan of this, especially because he used to be amazing a couple of years back, but then he suddenly just dipped a lot all of a sudden. So I'm not quite sure what's the reason behind that. Of course, he's had his struggles as well. We have seen that he's had the kidney issues and then all of that stuff, but he's fought his way back from all of that. So really inspiring story and all of that. But as a fourth choice midfielder on a one-year loan deal, considering the fact that we're not able to sign anyone else, I wouldn't mind it, I guess.
No, it's very interesting, Ameya. I mean, that loan option, I haven't seen it around, but you could be right. I've heard a few people talk about this one-year loan situation. I'm just looking at his transfer market information. Looks like his contract expires in 2026 with Atletico Madrid. So he's actually contracted for another 5 years with them. Yep. Surely he's fallen out. Obviously, they've got Rodrigo de Paul, who is a fantastic player. And we're going to find out a little bit more from Advaith about all of this. And then we'll circle back. But something to think about as well, that I don't know whether he will be a starter. The caliber of midfielder he is, he probably will demand to start. But when you've got Kovacic, Kante, and Jorginho, we do need that fourth midfielder. So to counter your point, Ameya, what you were saying about, Ethan Ampadu and whatnot, I just feel that maybe they suit that profile of that fourth midfielder. Whereas Saul, I'm not really sure, even on a loan option, whether he'll be happy to just be a rotational kind of player. But let's see what Advaith has to say. Advaith, my man, as I said, contract expires for Saul 2026. I mean, first of all, what is going on? Like, has there been a fallout or whatnot? Is it because of Rodrigo de Paul that's come in and he seems to be a much more of an upgrade? I've seen a lot of Rodrigo de Paul in the Copa America, and he was absolutely ecstatic player. Proper steal for Atletico Madrid to get a player like him for very cheap. I don't even think it was that expensive. I mean, talk us through Saul. We kind of talked about it off air that he's not the same Saul that we saw a couple of years back. High intensity, a lot of pressure, all the stats that Ameya has thrown in terms of, the top 10 in maintaining pressure and whatnot and really hustling the opposition. Advaith, what do you got to say about Saul and his impact in La Liga in the last season?
So with Saul, right, I think he's the kind of player who isn't talked about all that much, and that's not because he's underrated or anything of that sort, or he's not overrated either. He's a kind of player who really doesn't stand out in the Atletico Madrid when they play, and I think if you look at the way the last few seasons, I think Ameya is right. He's kind of dipped in form, and he's just hasn't been the kind of player that he was before. Maybe I think it was an injury that kind of altered things for him. So I think he really hasn't been the kind of he isn't like a standout player. I think we've heard the pronoun that is jack of all trades but master of none. And
Yeah.
I think he's that kind of player because he's good at certain aspects, like he probably has the defensive attributes, and he also is good like going forward, but then he isn't like the master, or he isn't particularly a standout player in that aspect.
Like he's not really like a Cesc Fabregas
Yeah,
midfielder. He's
yeah,
not like
yeah,
a Frank Lampard midfielder that scores a lot of goals. At the same time, he's
exactly.
not really like a Kante midfielder. He's not really like a Kovacic
Yeah,
midfielder. But it's like he has traits of all of that, a little bits and
yeah,
pieces of
yeah,
it. Because I'm looking at some of his stats. Even last season, Advaith, 33 games in La Liga, 2 goals, 1 assist. Champions League, 6 games, nothing. Copa del Rey, 2 games, nothing. So all over 41 games, 2 goals, 1 assist. And I know it's not about just goals and assists, but I mean, if you're not doing that, then we've already got Kante and Kovacic and
exactly.
Jorginho, who pretty much does that with no assist and goals.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
not really sure why we're adding another one of these players. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And so he has these traits of, being a box-to-box midfielder, or even being like a defensive midfielder. And even Simeone has even played him as a fullback. So he's like, he has these kind of attributes where he can play all around the pitch, but then he just doesn't, he doesn't like stand out, and he's not like the kind of player who, you'd probably go put your money on and, be desperate to sign, because the way I see it in Chelsea, right? You have Jorginho, Kante, and Kovacic. I just don't see him replacing either of these players in the starting 11. And obviously, if he was to come to Chelsea, he'd probably demand a lot of game time, and I don't think you would get him on a loan either. He wouldn't want that either. It'd probably be a permanent transfer, or he'll stay at Atletico Madrid. So he's this kind of player where I don't think Chelsea. I think Chelsea are looking for a DM, and I don't think he's the person who would necessarily fit that bill, because you'd want someone who, like, say, even like all things have been said about Declan Rice, but then we all know that he's Premier League proven and he's probably a good fit for Chelsea. But that the same thing can't be said about Saul Niguez. But and coming to the Atletico Madrid part, it is like these are one of these players who's like signed like a tremendously long contract. I think it was a 9-year contract a few years
Yep.
ago. 9-year
Yep.
contract. I mean, how often do you hear a player signing a 9-year
That's
contract?
insane. That's
And
insane.
and he still has 5 years left. So I'm not sure if there was any fallout or anything. I think Simeone has kind of like seen, because Atletico Madrid also aren't, really putting any efforts to keep him. It's kind of like they're like, okay, they're not desperate to sell, but then like, okay, if we get an offer, I mean, we can let him go. You know what I mean? So like, and as you said, they've signed Rodrigo De Paul, who's also, he's a great midfielder. So I think, with La Liga as well, even the stats speak for themselves. He like his defensive attributes are good. I mean, everything is just like good. That's the highest compliment you can give. It's just good. It's just not,
Just average.
yeah, yeah, just above La Liga standards. It's just above average. So yeah, that's just all I can say about him because as you said, he's not as we've talked about earlier as well. He's not great particularly at anything, and I'm really not sure how he'd fit Thomas Tuchel's system. But hey, I think he's not all that old, so maybe if even if you do sign him, maybe Thomas Tuchel can develop him into something great. So you just never know. But I just don't see him coming on a loan or anything of that sort.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people now throw that comment out. Maybe Thomas Tuchel could do something about this player. It's like he's a magician. And look, he has done madness, but let's be honest, I'm not sure whether he's going to do madness on every single player out there. I mean,
Right.
you do need two to tango. You need someone like Chalobah, to work hard, have that commitment, have that attitude, and then someone like Thomas Tuchel could, possibly mold a player into a superstar. But I just don't know where Saul's headspace is at the moment. He hasn't been that great for Atletico Madrid. All of a sudden he'll come to the Premier League and under Thomas Tuchel he's just light it up. I'll now circle back to Ameya and slowly sort of get that final verdict on this particular player. And we've talked about stats. We've talked about from the La Liga point of view. I'm not really feeling that energy about this particular player from the panel, ladies and gentlemen. Let's keep it absolutely honest about this. I mean, Ameya, you look at the profile of midfielders that we have, you look at the style that Thomas Tuchel plays, that Advaith kind of alluded on as well. Our midfielders are like, they're the connectors between defenders and the attackers. They're not really your midfield juggernauts that will create assists and goals. That's not the system that we play. Jorginho, Kovacic, and Kante have a very, very unique set of roles within this team, which I believe is to connect the defense to offense. And then the people up front, along with the wing backs, will create the goals and score the goals. That's my perspective, right? So someone like Saúl coming in, kind of fits that build because as we've already talked about his stats last season, 2 goals, 1 assist. I think this season, 1 game, 1 assist. So he's already got that quota of assists for last season in 1 game this season in the first game. So I'm not really sure what we can expect from Saúl furthermore. But from your perspective, Ameya, does he fit that connector sort of player from defense to offense? Can he be that Jorginho backup when Jorginho can't play? Can he play the register role? Can he at times, link up with Jorginho and play that Kante destroyer role? I mean, do you see any benefit with this, or do you think maybe we can look at, I don't know, Thomas Tuchel's already alluded in the press conference that someone like Chalobah, it's not preferred, his preference is right CB, but if need be, he could possibly fill in there as well. He's done that for Lorient. Then there's a whole Ethan Ampadu situation. I know you're not too keen about that, but then there is that situation. So from your perspective, I mean, is this necessary?
Not really. I'm going to be very honest. And I know you touched upon, that our panel is not very excited about this player. I'm genuinely not. I mean, a couple of years back, I would have been, because back then he used to be incredible, right? And in one of the seasons, I think 17, 18, he had an excellent season. He was like literally in the top 10 for every single midfield statistic that season. But then when it comes to the last few years, he's just not lived up to it. And I don't think his ball progression statistics are anywhere as good as we need them to be either. I mean, you look at Jorginho and Kovacic, they're like, if you plot them on the graph among midfielders in Europe, they're in like the first quadrant, right? That's how good they are. And I don't see Saul anywhere near that, if I'm being honest. His tackles are surprisingly high, as I mentioned, right? Because since 17-18, he's been in the top 10 for tackles won in every season. Even last season, although he played just 33 games in La Liga, he was still in the top 10. So I would say, tackling is good, but
Would you say he's more of a defensive? Cause it sounds like he's more of a defensive type of a midfielder, is he?
he is. But at the same time, he's not a DM, right? So it's a very difficult situation. He's not an out and out DM, but at the same time, he's not an out and out, like, I don't know, like a Jorginho Kovacic Kante type of midfielder as well. He has the engine. He has pretty decent passing attributes, but that's about it really. Like Advaith said, he's a good midfielder. He's good at, he's decent at everything. That's the best we can say. But if he's coming in to be fourth choice, I wouldn't mind it. But I definitely wouldn't want to sign him on a permanent, because this is the sort of transfers that we really have to avoid, right? Especially signing on a permanent. We've got Billy Gilmore on loan, and he might not even play in the next season if Jorginho Kovacic ends up staying. So when you have such a situation already, right, signing a 26-year-old, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me, honestly, because Jorginho, Kante and Kovacic aren't going anywhere, right? And you're adding Gilmore to that and next season, and you want another midfielder on top of that. It doesn't make sense. I mean, at least if you're going to sign a midfielder, sign a different profile, a midfielder that we don't have, or a midfielder that can step in and do his job capably. Someone like Tchouaméni, who I'm a huge fan of. I think he would fit into our system seamlessly and be an excellent Kante replacement. But Saul, does he really solve those problems? I'm not sure. I mean, of course, if he does end up joining, I will back him because I back every Chelsea player. But at the same time, not too excited about this, not too keen. I would rather, I don't know why we're not pursuing Tchouaméni, if I'm being honest. The Saul, I think, what's his transfer market value? Like 30 million?
They're saying like 40. They're saying 40, but I think that's a bit too steep.
Exactly. And Tchouaméni's value is the same, right? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. Honestly, I would much rather go for Tchouaméni or Rice, but I don't think Rice is happening this window. Yeah. So I'm going to stick with Tchouaméni. But, if it does go through, fingers crossed that he does well at Chelsea. Of course, I wouldn't want any player to fail. But at the same time, not too excited about this, if I'm being honest.
No, for sure. Advaith, I mean, what's your final verdict? I mean, does this, from a Real Madrid fan's perspective, someone looking outside into Chelsea, I mean, does this make sense at all? Saúl to Chelsea?
No, not really, to be honest, because I think Tchouaméni, I think Ameya has been the biggest admirer of him, I think. And even, Declan Rice, your other targets, I think they're far better fits to the system that Thomas Tuchel wants and the defensive midfielder role that you want. So I think, because Saul, few years ago, he was so good that he was linked to like Bayern and he was linked to Liverpool. And I mean, being linked to Bayern Munich, you really have to be a good player to, especially in midfield, you really have to be a good player to be linked to Bayern. So, and then now the talks have just died down. And then as we all mentioned, the past few seasons he's not been that good. And I think his market value has been 40 million because of the fact that he signed that 9-year contract, and he still has 5 years left on that contract. So, taking into all that account, 40 million, I don't see it, being the most worth for Chelsea, because I think you can go for Tchouaméni. I don't know why those talks have kind of died down as well. He's a much younger player, and I think he'd be a better fit. So and I also, another thing to mention is that Saúl Ñíguez was also linked to Barcelona in a swap deal with Antoine Griezmann, which didn't go through, and I don't think it's going to go through as well. So there, if you look at that Barcelona's midfield as well, if you were to get Saúl Ñíguez, I just don't see him, being the starter there as well. If you see the kind of football that they play, Frenkie de Jong is everything said about him, but then he kind of fits Ronald Koeman's system there. And if you look at Pedri as well, he's Saul doesn't have that kind of creativity that Pedri has. And even if you look at Busquets, although he's been kind of on the decline, but still Saul just does not replace those players. And then if you look at Chelsea, who have a step above in terms of players with Kante and Jorginho, admittedly so. Ameya smirking, but then admittedly so, yeah. So
I love it when a Real Madrid talks
two
up
of
Chelsea.
The top three players. Two of the top three nominees in the UEFA Player of the Year, man. Come on, you've got to hand it to us.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, if he can't replace sit in that Barcelona midfield, I don't think he can come anywhere close to being a regular starter at Chelsea. So I just don't see him being that good of a transfer, and I share the same opinion as you guys. If it does happen, you guys should kind of back him, because maybe Tuchel's seen something that we haven't seen. So,
Mm.
yeah, that kind of just sums it up. He's just been an okayish player in the past few seasons, good but not great. And I don't know how this would, be a perfect fit for Chelsea either. So, yeah.
No, for sure, man. I think the best way to put it, the boys you guys have said, is kind of like an average player, jack of
Mm,
all trades, master of none.
yeah,
I think that's the best way to put it, as
yeah,
Advaith said, and Ameya as well, saying that he's just decent. He's not spectacular in anything, just decent. Chelsea don't need decent. Chelsea don't need decent. We are the European champions. We don't need decent. We are trying to get rid of decent. We want to bring more decent. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, hope you guys have enjoyed this. Please make sure to like the video if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're here for the first time. We are running wild towards 8,000 subscribers, so do that. And check out my panelists and their socials in the description. Ameya and his YouTube channel, they're doing a madness over there. So do follow that. And Advaith on social media, both in Instagram and in football Twitter. Please follow him as well. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this. Please leave comments as well to let us know what you think about this whole Saúl situation, whether you agree with it, do you want him in the team, will you not want him in the team, his strengths, weaknesses, whatever you want to comment, please comment below. I'll try my level best to get to you guys. Until next time, everyone, take care and see ya.